My name is Molly, and today we'll be talking about cognition, which is basically thinking. Speaking of thinking, I'm thinking about a tree right now. Here, we'll move it. No, stay. Back to encoding. Encoding is the process of putting new information into memory. Automatic processing is probably what you're doing right now. Unconsciously processing that I am a dog talking to you about psychology, but you should be using effortful processing, which is encoding requiring attention. Two types of effortful processing are maintenance rehearsal, the repetition of information, and elaborative rehearsal, analyzing the meaning of new information and relating it to the information already stored. So like repeating ball, 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 versus relating my new ball to my favorite color, purple. There's also semantic encoding, processing the general meaning of something, and imagery encoding, creating a mental image of something. Now onto storage, which is simply how your brain maintains information. I maintain or store my food here. Sensory memory registers its information from the senses for approximately 1 second, being able to store a lot of information, but for a very short time, just like my brain. Echoic memory is from sounds, and iconic is from what you see. Short-term memory is just what it sounds like, being able to hold 5 to 9 items for 30 seconds, but long-term memory is relatively permanent. Explicit memory is conceptually driven, top-down processing that you think about then experience. For example, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Declarative memory is heavily tied into implicit memory. You simply declare a fact as true. Implicit memory, on the contrary, is when you remember how to do something because at some point in the past you've learned it, like tying your shoes, which I don't have to do. Procedural memory is the same as that last example, knowing how to do something. Only 3 more to go for storage, I promise. Episodic memory is like watching your life back as a show. In order and event-based, semantic memory is your general understanding and rules of the world, and working memory is the memories you hold in short term while executing a task. Onto retrieval. There are retrieval cues, stimuli that help you locate information from long-term memory. Schema is your general knowledge based on your experiences living in this world. Your schemas allow you to make decisions, form new thoughts, and think quickly. Let's say if you threw up after a carnival ride at the fair, you may be less inclined to make the decision to go to the fair the next year. Recognition is what you need on a multiple-choice test. Simply the ability to recognize a piece of information as being familiar. Recall, however, is a retrieval of details from memory, like a fill-in-the-blank test. Some psychologist I named Ebbinghaus created a test to measure forgetfulness, in which he studied himself and found that we forget a lot right away and that it levels off slowly. Retroactive and proactive are a tricky duo. However, retroactive is where new information interferes with the recall of old information, while on the other hand, like Ms. Gilbert says, proactive prevents new breakouts, or in other words, old information interferes with the recall of new information. The tip of the tongue phenomenon is something I personally can't experience because I can't speak, but it's when you know what you're trying to retrieve but can't access it. This relates to retrieval failure as there are not proper cues to access the information. Retrograde amnesia is when you can't remember personal aspects from one past, where antegrade amnesia is when you can't form new memories. Acetylcholine is the first neurotransmitter that we've learned responsible for memory, thinking, and language, in which a decrease of it correlates to Alzheimer's. Memory can be improved through elaborative rehearsal, which means to make connections between things you're trying to remember in order to have greater retrieval later. We do this to remember vocab words like hippocampus. You will always remember a hippo and campus, and the hippocampus deals with memory. Then there is also periodic retrieval, which means rehearsing information more often and spacing out studying. Ms. Gilbert tries to make us do this by telling us to study our flashcards every Sunday, which I definitely do. There are other tricks like mnemonics that are techniques for organizing information into long-term memory. Roji Biv is an example of a mnemonic. Methods of loci are imagining images to be remembered by associating them with the place already stored in memory. Lastly, a survey, question, read, recite, review. These are the best steps to follow when performing some elaborative rehearsal. Thinking in humans is based on a lot of categorizing and patterns, and judging by how I act, it's true for dogs too. People categorize and level, so superordinate are general categories. For example, vehicles, a basic category, is generic but more defined, so cars, and a subordinate category is highly specific. So 2017, Nissan Murano, the car I go for rides in. Prototypes are another tool humans use to think. Prototypes are the best examples of concepts, so to people who grew up with Australian Shepherds as dogs, I am the prototype of a dog. Although yellow labs are much more popular. Algorithms are one way humans solve problems in which all solutions are considered and the best is found and used. Functional fixedness is where past experience limit people's ideas about object use. For example, my ball can be used to throw, but it can also be used at the end of a walker, which you can use if you have two legs. Confirmation bias is where you only look for evidence to support your initial beliefs. Therefore, you fail to consider what would disprove it. Deductive reasoning is where you draw logical conclusions from available evidence, or on the other hand, inductive reasoning is discovery of a general rule of principle from certain observations. For example, boy is to man as girl is to woman. Now moving on to heuristics. Heuristics are an approach to problem solving and decision making. Firstly, representative heuristic is what is representative of a group where stereotypes are utilized that lead us to making decisions, but can also lead us in the wrong direction. Anchoring heuristic is an estimate based on anchoring or a starting point. For example, how much you are willing to spend for a car. Availability heuristic is an estimation made based on examples that come to mind first. For example, the recent weather deciding whether or not my owner should take me on a walk. And finally, base rate heuristic is the statistical probability or the frequency of a phenomenon within the population. I'm a doc, so I can't actually talk, but humans have some good theories on language development. First, babies cry, then coo, babble, start speaking with single words, and then move on to telegraphic speech, which consists of 2 words. Humans also learn language through imitation, although only 1/5 of what adults say is imitated by children, so it's not the only factor. There is also an innate disposition to acquire language rapidly, which is why kids can learn language without formal teaching. There is rapid progress in language development in the first 5 to 6 years of a human's life, indicating the brain and body is pre-wired to learn language. Cognitive development of language is also part of the theory, as language is a tool to express basic understanding. Overall, it's important to remember the learning theories, but also that language develops through reinforcement. Now on to intelligence and learning. My mental age is defined by Binet and Simon as 2 years old on a human scale, and when divided by my chronological age, 10, makes my IQ 20. But I am a dog, so... Anyways, there are 2 intelligence scales made by Wechsler, the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale and the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for children. They are the most widely and respected IQ tests that measure verbal and nonverbal abilities. Now on to another psychology guy. Alfred Binet was a French psychologist who developed the modern intelligence testing movement that assesses intellectual abilities. This test was reconstructed by Stanford University and assesses 4 subcategories that we can think of using the acronym SQUAV: short-term memory, quantitative reasoning, abstract or visual reasoning, and verbal reasoning. Standardization in testing eliminates bad questions that may be biased towards different races, ages, and social backgrounds. It establishes norms for these tests. If students taking the AP Psychology exam score low across the nation, then the College Board will likely curve the exam based on the national average. The College Board also has to make sure their test is reliable and valid. A test that is reliable continues to find consistent testing results under similar testing conditions. A test with validity measures what it is intended to measure, like what is listed on the course outline. Aptitude is your ability to learn something new. One may take an aptitude test to decide on a career choice, such as the ASVAB. Achievement is what you have already learned. This would be taking your AP exam and AP Psychology at the end of the school year. Good thing I don't have to worry about that. Now on to the structure of intelligence theories. Spearman's single-factor theory involves reasoning and problem-solving, while Thurston's primary abilities involves reasoning, problem-solving, verbal comprehension, and reading, word fluency, quantitative and numerical logic, visual and spatial perception, memory and perception. Sternberg's triarchic theory includes compensual intelligence, which is verbal and spatial reasoning, experiential intelligence, creativity, ability to perceive novel and creative solutions to complex problems, and contextual intelligence, ability to deal effectively with one's environment. Gardner's multiple intelligences theory, which is based off the book Frames of Mind, includes verbal and nonverbal intelligence factors, such as linguistic, logical and mathematical, spatial ability, musical, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, and naturalistic intelligence. Some people are born with or develop intellectual disabilities, which are classified by IQ scores of less than 70. These are different ranges of IQ that distinguish the level of intellectual disability. Mild has an IQ of 52 to 69, moderate has an IQ of 36 to 51, and severe has an IQ of 20 to 35. Profound IQ is less than 20. Only 2 to 3% of the population is classified as gifted, meaning they have an IQ of 130 or more. As much as heredity affects intelligence, so does environment. Leon Conlin described an analogy where good and poor seeds planted in both fertile and barren soil do varyingly different. A good seed, or someone with inherited intelligence, can reach high potential in good soil or environments, but even the best seed in toxic soil will die. And the same goes for bad seeds. They will do their best in good environments despite their lesser inherited intelligence, and will die the same as the good seed in bad soil. Differences in cultures and backgrounds can lead to inaccuracies in testing. Cultural bias is when a test favors one group more than others. For example, someone who is not from the US may be confused when you say, "It's all Greek to me," as they explain the AP Psych Cognition unit to you. Test makers strive to get rid of cultural bias. However, tests are made by people, so it's very hard to eliminate it completely. Today, you hopefully reviewed memory, thinking, language, testing, and intelligence. As always, thank you to my Puppable subscribers, and thank you for listening.